Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Jai Shri Ram.
Goparaj good round of applause for them for we can have a speaker Adhikada Patrika 6, so Goparaj will be speaking, and after the Sunday's lecture is over, we're going to have a mini arati, then there will be a also, we don't have a Sunday sponsor, if somebody wants to sponsor, you can come and see me. And then there will be a Prashadam around 6 o'clock. So please stay with us. Thank you. Thank you. Jaya Radha
Srila Prabhupada ki. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. So again, welcome everybody again to the Sunday Love Feast.
Please come on.
I'm harmless, so don't be afraid. Today, we're going to be speaking from the 10th canto. I was informed also that this is going to be a theme coming the next few weeks, speaking from the 10th canto, because they are the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and they want to develop the mood for the upcoming festival, which is Julan Yatra, you said? That's one reason. Yes, we can take that as a key jai. But certainly coming up, eventually, we're going to hear about the appearance of Sri Krishna and from so many angles and so many details. So I was asked if I could please sit in for Adi Gadadhar Prabhu. I can't. It's impossible for me to replace him. He's such a knowledgeable and wonderful devotee that can give intimate details on many of these pastimes. Nevertheless, it's a service. So I'm taking it not because I'm proud. I have no pride. I have no ability actually to do this. I like everybody, we all owe it all to Srila Prabhupada. He's an amazing personality. He is the Jagat Guru for this Kali Yuga age. If you haven't read his biography by Satsvarup Maharaj, I definitely highly recommend that because you will make advancement just by hearing about how Srila Prabhupada had to struggle to come here. Amazing activities that he performed. Anyway, in that same light, I would like just to narrate a little bit here from a recent publication by Rupa Vilas. You've heard of Rupa Vilas? He's a Prabhupada disciple. He's written quite a few books about the Acharyas. His most recent book has added Srila Prabhupada as one of the most prominent Acharyas. It's called Without Fear. Again, I recommend it. Reading. Reading is key in this Kali Yuga to making some advancement. Anyway, way back, 1968, Srila Prabhupada visited Seattle, Washington. And I'm going to read a short exchange between him and apparently a new young person visiting. Rupa Vilas explains this, that Srila Prabhupada had an exchange with a young man who he was actually against bowing down. We couldn't understand why everybody assembled there when Prabhupada came in. They bowed down, not me. I'm not going to bow to anyone. That was his attitude. So here's the exchange. There. So this young man did not want to subordinate himself to anyone or anything. Srila Prabhupada said to him that this was his disease. So the immediate response. He said this was his disease. The young man was taken aback by this, and Srila Prabhupada explained, you're bowing down to everyone else. You're bowing down to death. You're bowing down to disease. You're bowing down to old age. You're bowing down to so many things. You are forced, and still you're thinking that I cannot bow down. That's especially in the West here. No one wants to subordinate themselves to somebody else, put them on a high seat, put them on a pedestal. It's unheard of. You are bowing down to so many things. You are forced, and still you're thinking that I cannot bow down. I don't like it. Because you are saying, I don't like it, therefore you're being forced. You have to bow down. Why do you forget your position? That is our disease. Therefore, the next process is that I'm being forced to bow down. Now we have to find out, where shall I be happy even by bowing down? That is Krishna. Your bowing down will not be stopped because you are meant for that. But if you bow down to Krishna and Krishna's representative, you become happy. Test this. You have to bow down. If you don't bow down to Krishna and his representative, then you will be forced to bow down to something else. Maya. That is your position. You cannot be free at any moment. Simply you have to seek out where you have to bow down. That's all. That is Krishna. You cannot stop your bowing down, but you have to see where you have to bow down. That's all. If you artificially think that I'm not going to bow down to anyone, I'm independent, then you suffer. Simply you have to seek out the proper place where you have to bow down. Srila Prabhupada Aki. Yeah. So is that clear to everyone what took place in this exchange? Because, of course, many of you dear souls are from India, have Indian background. It's common. You have to show respect. You're taught from childhood. The son respects the mother. He learns to respect the mother. He bows down, sometimes touches the feet. I don't know how prominent this is in modern society, but it is still practiced that the children respect the parents to such a degree that they touch the feet. So this is showing respect. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining to this young Western guy, apparently from the hippie generation, I'm not going to submit to anything. Freedom. I have all freedom. When in actuality, you have nothing. You're forced to bow down. What are you forced to bow down to? What are those four things? Birth, death, old age, disease. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. You can't stop those. So you're forced to bow to those things. But an arrogant person, a person with this kind of mentality, no, I don't want to bow down. You're just an ordinary man. But devotees learn very quickly Vanchikalpatarubhyascha, Kripasandubhya evacha, Patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we show our respect to everyone, and especially to Guru and Gauranga. With that being said, now we will dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam. Again, as many of you know, this is the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Those amazing pastimes in Golok Vrindavan. They're very special because Krishna's activities, what he does in one so-called second, is the most important thing for us. What to speak when he exhibited all these amazing pastimes. So Vaishnavas, they certainly understand where the Vedas are coming from. A Vaishnava can understand the importance of Krishna's pastime because they're not mythology. In the Western world, there's a problem with this understanding because when we see something from so-called antiquity, we say, oh, that's just a myth, just being brainwashed by some old stories, some fairy tales. How many have heard this kind of talk? You hear it. To this day, that's how the people accept this. That this is just some kind of mythology and it's based on, etc., etc. So much speculation. But who among them can actually come up with what is the absolute truth? Can't. Has any scientist shown what is the absolute truth? Go into a laboratory and produce an experience. This is what is the truth. This is what is real. No, it hasn't been done. They do propagate, you hear many times in the media and everywhere else, create your own reality. Have you heard this phrase, create your own reality? Can you create your own reality? Has anybody here been able to do it? Because if you break it down, you see that's totally nonsense. How can you create a reality? First of all, you have to ignore everything your parents, your teachers, everyone else have taught you, because that comes from authority that's been passed down. If you want to create your own reality, I would think you would have to start with language, because you're not going to accept the language that you've been taught. Why? You're creating your own reality. So the word book that no longer means book. What does it mean in your reality? Is it in your reality? So we can see, if you stretch this out, it's just a bunch of nonsense. You can't create your own reality. And just like this young man who initially did not want to bow down, you have to learn who to bow to. You have to learn what is the reality and how to act in that reality. In actuality, Sri Krishna, Radha Krishna is the reality. So we learn how to act, how to reciprocate with the reality. The reality is a person, the supreme person. We know people in this world and we interact with them. That's in the material world. There's all types of activities. This is my friend, this is my enemy, this is my mom, this is my pop, this is my sister, this is my brother. So many relationships. This is my boss, whom I hate, and this is so-and-so. All these relationships we develop and we react. And we forget what is the most important relationship. We don't know. We haven't actually questioned. So through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, many began to question. And those that did under his directive began to see what is the absolute truth. So I'm going to read maybe a few verses here. We're not starting in the beginning of the Krishna book, which Srila Prabhupada has graciously translated the whole 10th canto in 2 volumes, straight English. They're most wonderful. Again, when you read it, I suggest reading it with like a clear, open mind. You can't force anything, but read it with an open mind. You'll see the beauty of Krishna's activities. But I'm jumping at this point, not in the beginning, but almost towards the end of that whole canto. There are 90 chapters in the 10th canto. One reason why he didn't immediately translate it as he had done the other cantos. It's a very long process. So in order that Westerners would not be misled, in order that they would not take the pastimes as some erotic fantasy, some erotic mythology, he wrote in English the Krishna book, referencing all these 90 chapters. That's why it's so amazing. But here we have a breakdown of what that means. I'm going to start in chapter 87, almost at the end. And the title of this chapter is The Prayers of the Personified Vedas. What's personified mean? Who can tell me? What does personified mean? I know you're with me, so I'll just wait. What is the meaning of personified?
Like something being brought to life. Like an idea being brought to life.
Good answer. An idea or something being brought to life, which is exactly true. So the Vedas, we tend to think of the Vedas as maybe books or a composite of books. But the Vedas originally are persons. So you hit it right on the head. So the personified Vedas then are these personalities that actually vibrate this knowledge. In the Kali Yuga, the age we live, knowledge comes from books and of course now from Apple laptops, or that's where we get our knowledge, so to speak. But originally, this was spoken, vibrated. Sound vibration is the most important thing in this material universe. Sound vibration. Because with the human voice you can vibrate Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's Krishna. That's Krishna. Non-different than his deity form, the Archa Vigraha, nor non-different than his actual form. So it's hard for us to immediately grasp that in the West or anywhere else. That this sound vibration is the same as Krishna? Yes. So with a little practice, one can actually come to realize that. And that leads, after Parikshit Maharaj had heard so much about the Bhagavatam, so many of these pastimes, he still has a question. So we're going to read this. This is text 1 of chapter 87. Sri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanyan Nireshye Nirgune Gunavittaya Katam Charanti Shrutaya Saksad Sad Asakta Pare. I missed our screen because we could project the verse and everyone could chant. I don't know exactly what happened to the big TV, but we'll struggle on without it. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
Sri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanyan Nireshye Nirgune Guna Vrittaya Katam Charanti Shrutaya Sakshat Sad Asata Pare. The translation by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Parikshit said, O Brahmana, how can the Vedas directly describe the supreme absolute truth, who cannot be described in words? We hear it? how can the Vedas describe the supreme absolute truth who cannot be described in words? The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature, but the Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material manifestations and their causes. That is his question. How is it possible that the Vedas can actually describe Krishna? Krishna has nothing to do with the material nature. The only thing he did initially was afforded his glance through one of his proxies. Karanodakashaya Vishnu is an expansion of Krishna. We won't get into those details, but this is how Krishna, through him, simply threw a glance at the material nature, whom we come to know is Maya, or the Durga Devi. So that's the only contact he had, like a glance. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking a very important question, because we're relying on the Vedas. O Brahmana, how can the Vedas directly describe the supreme absolute truth who cannot be described in words? The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature, but the Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material manifestations and their causes. So, before I read this purport, which is basically I'm going to focus on as much of it as we can, I'm going to go to the second verse, which is Shukadev is going to answer. Shukadev uvacha bhunindriya mana pranan jananam asrijat prabhu matratam cha bhavartam cha atmane kalpapanaya cha. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami said, the Supreme Lord manifested the material intelligence, senses, mind, and vital air of the living entities so that they could indulge their desires for sense gratification, take up repeated births to engage in fruitive activities, become elevated in future lives, and ultimately attain liberation. It's a very condensed answer. In this answer is everything, but the next 80 verses will answer that. There's approximately 80 verses in this 87 chapter. So it took that much information for him to give a detailed response to how the Vedas can give this pure knowledge. So we're going to go back. But just to solidify this in our minds, once again, Shukadeva Goswami responds to this question. Shukadeva Goswami said, the Supreme Lord manifested the material intelligence, senses, mind, and vital air of the living entities so that they could indulge their desires for sense gratification, take repeated births to engage in fruitive activities, become elevated in future lives, and ultimately attain liberation. Any questions thus far? Okay, we're going to go back to text 1 and try to understand this purport, which is no simple matter. Again, the text number 1, Sri Parikshit said, O Brahmana, how can the Vedas directly describe the supreme absolute truth who cannot be described in words? The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature, but the Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material manifestations and their causes. So now we're going to get into understanding this verse and what is to come from this purport. Before beginning his commentary on this chapter, Sridhar Swami prays, I'll read the English, I worship Lord Nrsimha, within whose mouth resides the great masters of eloquence, upon whose chest resides the goddess of fortune, and within whose heart resides the divine potency of consciousness. So before he even says anything about this chapter, about this comment made by Parikshit Maharaj, he's actually praying with a verse to give us that ability, that potency, and the blessing to actually understand what's going on. We can't do it alone. His next prayer, desiring to purify my sampradaya and being bound by duty, I will briefly comment on the prayers of the personified Vedas to the best of my realization. Then he says, Srimad Bhagavatam Purvai Sarata Sanishevitam Maya Tutad Apashritam Uchishtam Upachiyate. Translation. Inasmuch as Srimad Bhagavatam has already been perfectly honored by my predecessor's explanation, I can only gather together the remnants of what they have honored. And then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti offers his own prayer on this same point. He says, Mama Ratna Vani Bhavam Ratnayam Parichinvata Hasantu Santo Jiremi Naswaswanta Vinoda Krit. Translation. May the saintly devotees, the saintly devotees may laugh at me for becoming a jewel merchant, though I know nothing about precious jewels, but I feel no shame, for at least I may entertain them. Then he prays, though I have no wisdom, no devotion, or detachment, I am still greedy to take the philosopher's stone of the Vedas prayers from the fortress in which it is being kept. Who knows what is the philosopher's stone? What can you do with it? Yes. Speak loudly. You can, I can't hear it from here.
You can live forever. Like
You can live forever. That's one. If you get that quality, and if you have the stone, please share it with me too. I would love this stone. Philosopher's stone is like that. That any benediction you're wanting, you can basically get it. So here, Vishwanath Chakravarti is praying. First, he admits he doesn't have any good qualities. Imagine. He's one of the acharyas in a line of disciplic succession. But he is saying he has no wisdom, no devotion. He's praying. But still, what is the main point of this statement? He says he's greedy to take the philosopher's stone of the Vedas. So like the philosopher's stone, the Vedas can actually give us what we want if we're keen. But it's in a fortress. So we're going to see what that fortress is. It's just like if you go to Fort Knox, they're not going to hand you a bar of gold. You can't get in there. You might be shot, but you won't get a bar of gold. Fort Knox is where the U.S. supposedly stores all of its gold. Of course, now money is not even based on gold. It's based on horse feathers or something ethereal out there. Has no real significance. So another prayer here by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. Mam nichatayam aviveka vayu Parvartate Bhattayitam Balachat Likam Yata Swami Sanatta Sri Krishna Gri Bastamba Kripvalamba. Translation: if the wind of indiscretion, my failure to acknowledge my lowly position, threatens to knock me down, then while writing this commentary, I must hold onto the effulgent pillars of the feet of Sridhar Swami, Sanatana Goswami, and Lord Sri Krishna. This is the mood of devotees. We ourselves independently have no ability. We cling to the predecessor acharyas for their blessings to give us that ability to enter into the Vedas. Repeatedly bowing down to my divine spiritual master and Lord Sri Krishna, the ocean of mercy, I take shelter of Sri Sukadeva Goswami, the protector of the world and its universal eye. So, just as we heard, here's an acharya, literally, and he doesn't mean this figuratively, that just something nice poetry for you to hear, repeatedly bowing down. That was not what he was doing. He literally did. This is the mood of the acharyas. And we see that in the living example of Srila Prabhupada. He always showed great respect and taught the devotees how immediately entering the temple to bow down to Sri Nitai Gaura Chandra, Lord Jagannath, Lord Balaram, and certainly Sri Radha Madan Mohan. Now, unlike the young man we just heard from earlier, refusing to bow down, too arrogant, too puffed up. At the end of the preceding chapter, Shukadeva Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit, quote, "Thus, O king, the personality of Godhead, who is the devotee of his own devotees, stayed for some time with his two great devotees, teaching them how perfect saints behaved. Then he returned to Dwarka." In this verse, the word Sanmargam can be understood in at least three ways. The first is Sat, is taken to mean, quote, a devotee of the Supreme Lord, Sat. And thus, Sanmargam means the path of Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service. In the second, with Sat meaning a seeker of transcendental knowledge, Sanmargam means the philosophical path of knowledge. So it's not just some mundane material knowledge, which is there. So many books you can study. But we're talking Sanmargam, in this instance, meaning the philosophical path of knowledge. But, he continues with this, which has impersonal Brahman as its object, this Sanmargam. And in the third, with Sat referring to the transcendental sound of the Vedas, Sanmargam means the process of following Vedic injunctions. So Sanskrit is a very intricate language. One would be far-fetched to say he or her is a master of Sanskrit. It takes years to really study because there are many subtle things that you have to understand. This is why in the past, before Srila Prabhupada's coming, there were no proper translation of any of the Vedic books. In the very beginning, he could see that he had come with 4 or 5 volumes he had done of Srimad Bhagavatam. But at that point, he had not translated Bhagavad Gita. And in one class there at 62nd 7th Avenue, where the first little temple was, a lady was asking, which Bhagavad Gita should I read, Swamiji? They used to call Prabhupada Swamiji. Which Bhagavad Gita? And Srila Prabhupada couldn't find any with the proper understanding. At that point, he took up himself, and he would translate Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because just to give a translation of Sanskrit, anyone can do it, so to speak. Just take a dictionary and start. But you totally miss what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Practically after every verse in the Bhagavad Gita and most of the other books. What did he give us? Purports. Anybody read purports of Srila Prabhupada? Yes. Read the purports for the real depth of understanding. So this is what Sanmargam, this simple 2 words, is really referring to when it comes to the Vaishnava's understanding. How to follow the Vedic injunctions. Because in Kali Yuga it's very difficult. Both the second and the third of these interpretations of Sanmargam lead to the question of how the Vedas can describe the absolute truth. Srila Sridhar Swami elaborately analyzes this problem in terms of the traditional discipline of Sanskrit poetics. We should consider that words have 3 kinds of expressive capacities called Shabda Vrittis. These are the different ways a word refers to its meaning, distinguished as Mukhya Vritti, Lakshana Vritti, and Guna Vritti. So, into this, we're not advocating that you all become Sanskrit scholars. It's not really possible, and we don't have the time. But we're hearing in depth what the background of this translation is giving us. And that is will answer that most important question. How can the Vedas, which use material words, like we use material words every day in whatever language we're speaking, whether it's English, French, Hindi, Gujarati, so many words. How many different languages do we have in this room? How many people, most of you can speak Hindi? Practically everyone knows something. Bengali? Yeah. Here we go. Telugu. Acha. What other languages that I didn't mention? Somebody yell out another language. Kannada. Any speakers?
Kannada. Kannada.
Kannada. So many languages.
Spanish.
So all of these languages can be and mostly are used in a material way.
Japanese.
I'm sorry to say that, but that's how we do it. Well, English, same thing. Without Srila Prabhupada's translations and purports, English is totally useless. It's one of the most boring languages on the planet, English. So rigid, so many nonsense rules. I don't know what the Queen was thinking about 2 or 3 centuries ago. Some of these rules for English make no sense. But again, we're not here for linguistics. We're here to get to the same point Parikshit Maharaj is asking. How can the Vedas, because even the Vedas seem to be coming from the material. In the Vedas, if you can read and hear Sanskrit, you understand it's describing something material. So this is why Srila Sridhar Swami is going into this. I'm going to read just a little bit more. The Shabda Vritti, termed Mukhya, is the primary or literal meaning of a word. This is also known as Abhida, a word's denotation, or the dictionary meaning. Mukhya Vritti is further divided into 2 subcategories, namely Ruddhi and Yoga. A primary meaning is called Ruddhi, when it is based on conventional usage, and Yoga, when it is derived from another word's meaning by regular epistemology. So yoga literally means to link up. So if you're linking something, you're linking a meaning. What does he mean by that? He gives an example. The word go means cow, is an example of ruti, since its relation with its literal meaning is purely conventional. The denotation of the word pachaka, which means in English chef. Did I pronounce that right? Pachaka? Chef? Anyone know this word? It says chef. On the other hand, is a yoga vritti. So pachaka is a yoga vritti. It's linking something through the word's derivation from the root. Pach means to, what does pach mean? To cook. I thought we had a room of Sanskrit scholars in here. Pach means to cook. By the addition of the suffix ka. Ka. I know I can't pronounce things properly. So pachaka means a chef. And so we get this yoga vritti from the linking of these two words. So we do this incommonly every day in whatever language we speak. There's so many things that we speak and say, and we don't even think anymore of the real meaning. We don't go into that. It's just we're talking, parrot talk. That kind of talk won't get us through this real meaning of the Vedas. Besides the mukhya vritti, or primary meaning of a word, can also be used in a secondary or metaphorical sense. This usage is called lakshana. The rule is that a word should not be understood metaphorically if its mukhya vritti makes sense in the given context. So he's training us how to listen to the Vedas through giving us literal grammatical rules and understanding how to go about it, because we do not want to be cheated. We do not want to be misled. So I'm going to, at this point, for the sake of time, I have to again skip back to text 2, and we're going to get just a little bit of this purport from text 2, where Shukadeva answers the question. To refresh, Shukadeva Goswami said, the Supreme Lord manifested the material intelligence, the senses, mind, and vital air of the living entities so that they could indulge their desires for sense gratification, take repeated births to engage in fruitive activities, become elevated in future lives, and ultimately attain liberation. So out of those 4 things, what would you pick? Because they've been given. By the way, you have to pick. Why do you have to pick? Because you're in a human body right now. So, if you listen carefully, what has just been said, Krishna gave all of this. The material intelligence, our senses, we have 5 of them. Sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. And the mind, our key enemy right here, telling us what to do. I've got to sneak out here to the right and just get one more puff on this cigarette. By the way, I literally saw somebody come out of this, and I'm not criticizing. I saw somebody step out of this temple, go around back, and over by the cars, just to have a cigarette. This is the mind. The mind will trick you like that you've got to have this. Something as useless as a cigarette, but you get it. But back to my point here, or the Bhagavatam's point, Krishna manifested all of this. Listen carefully. So that they could indulge their desires for sense gratification. He's allowing this to happen. Because why? Because that's what you want. Krishna didn't say, take birth on the planet Earth and I'll give you some cigarettes. That's what you wanted. I wanted. Take repeated births to engage in fruitive activities. Most of us wouldn't look at it that way. We're just thinking, I'm independent. I'm doing what I want. There's your passage. That's your ticket to another birth right there. Just as Srila Prabhupada told this young gentleman, he warned him, you have to bow down. You're going to bow down to death. What are you going to push death away? No, don't come to my house. Who can push death away? No one. Can't say, excuse me, I'm busy. When death knocks on the door, hello, may I come in? You can't say no, unfortunately, because that is the time that we get a new costume. So I'm throwing some humor in there, but that's what happens. The body is like a type of costume. You can be in a lion's body, tough lion, or you can be all the way up to a demigod. And you still have to be prepared for that knock. So that's what engaging in fruitive activities means. All the things on this planet that attract us, all the different things that we can do, create your own reality, make your own way, be your own man, be your own woman, all those things you can do here. And hopefully you get down to number 4, become elevated in future lives, and ultimately, he says, attain liberation. So that's what the devotees want, but not just any liberation. But before we go there, I have to give just a little of this purport so we get the mood of what is being said. At the dawn of creation, when the conditioned living entities lay dormant within the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu, he initiated the process of creation by sending forth coverings of intelligence, mind, and so on for the living entities' benefit. As stated here, Vishnu is the independent Lord. Prabhu means independent Lord. And the living entities are his jana, dependents. Thus we should understand that the Lord creates the cosmos entirely for the living entity's sake. Compassion is his sole motive. So, because we wanted to be independent of Krishna, out of compassion, he, okay. Just like a young child, this is a poor analogy, but a young child wants something, so the parents say, okay, here's the things you can play with. So you get your toys, you get your bike, so many things you can have and enjoy. So Krishna does that. But like any good parent, he knows there's many dangers. So you wouldn't give the child a knife to play with. There's no good. So even if the child demands the knife, you don't allow that. So Krishna has embedded in this world things to keep us away from the harmful aspects. But our problem is we are very rebellious children. No, I want the knife. Give me. This is what happens. We're demanding from Krishna, give me this, give me that. It's no good. But Krishna, out of compassion, has created this whole cosmos. We could spend many classes just expanding on this. We don't have the time. Let me continue here. By providing the living entities with gross and subtle bodies, this is gross. You can touch it. You can feel it. It can hurt. Like my knees hurt all the time. I can feel it. You get pain. And the mind. Some people, the scientists are keen after trying to understand what is the mind. One very wonderful devotee, Sariputta Prabhu, was explaining. He's left this body, but you might have read some of his books. But he was explaining this, how scientists try to explain how we see something. That light passes through the retina, the image is reversed, it enters through these little electrical impulses enter through the mind and send it right side up, and the intelligence tells you this is a book. That's how we see. He fails, not Sariputta, but the scientist fails to explain who is the seer, who is the he or the she that's seeing. As you look at the object, here we're looking at this laptop, so the light is hitting it, it goes into my head, I'm seeing this is a laptop, and it comes out right side up. Who is seeing it? Who's making the decision? Who is the I? Where is this I located? Is it a bunch of synapses, these little things that fire in the brain and throughout the body? And the synapses firing. There's where the information is. It came down this channel. Well, where is the I? You mean the I? Who is that I that says, I see the computer? Where is that person? Where is that entity? We're just, I mean, there's so many things that we take for granted. I am seeing. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, and this comes from his biography by Bhakti Vikas Swami, very nice biography. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, practically my whole life has been teaching to try to get people to understand Drishya Vichar, the seer. Who is the seer? What is the object of seeing? And how does this process work? Who is the seer? And he was, as the Lion Guru, he was very critical of his disciples and anyone else thinking that they could go and get a darshan. I'm going to see the deities. This word darshan, especially in English, it just loses it. But it has darshan of you. You want to hope that Krishna sees you. This is why. So when a person says in this Western hemisphere, show me God, what qualification you have? That I can show you God, but where's your qualification to see God? You don't have any. It's like, if we take some example, if you have a PhD in biology, you can explain microscopic entities, and you can actually show some things under a microscope and prove what you're saying. But if a person doesn't have that background and he just says, show me the streptococcus germ. Who knows what streptococcus is? Get it all the time. Sore throat. This germ produces this thing. You can't see it with your eyes. And so if you're that heavy to show you the proof, how are you going to see? You can't see it with your eyes. You have no qualification. You need qualification for anything. You can't just say, I want an audience with King Charles tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We're going to sit down and have breakfast. I'm going to the palace. Anybody in here has that clout? You can go to the palace and have breakfast with the king? No. So who are we to demand, show me God? What makes you think God wants to even look at you right now? Because He's enjoying all the time. That is Krishna's position. Why is He holding the flute here? He's always playing on the 5th note. So if I had an instrument, I'd play the 5th note for you. Like in the key of C, it would be a G. Krishna's always vibrating that G. But not like we do. We can hold a key for 10 seconds or whatever. Krishna's making music. Who here likes music? beautiful bhajans, so many beautiful melodies for chanting Hare Krishna. So you think just because Krishna is vibrating on the fifth note, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, he is not making music, he's making unimaginable music. You can't fathom the beauty of his playing that fifth note. You'll hear later in these pastimes when the gopis and the people of Vrindavan heard Krishna vibrate the flute, what did they do? They dropped everything. I mean, literally dropped everything. We don't have that experience in this world. Unless, of course, like in my case, if I hear my wife calling, then I drop what I'm doing and I go see what needs to be done. But we don't face that in this kind of situation that we're in, because we're still like that young man, refusing to bow to certain things. I'm the master, I'm the controller. But the gopis, when they hear this flute, it's so transcendently pure and beautiful that they disregard everything that we would call normal. Cooking for the husband, cleaning the house, maybe making some new garment, maybe visiting a relative, maybe answering to what our parents said to do. Everything is dropped. And what do? They go off. And in one situation, which I'm not going to elaborate on, but in the dead of night, unheard of, a young lady going out in the dead of night. The gopis went out in the dead of night. So we hear this with material understanding. The dead of night means something dangerous for us. Snakes, dogs, wild animals, and what to speak, our fellow man. They have guns, knives, and much worse things. So we don't go out in the dead of night alone. But the gopis, in this transcendental position, they go out in the dead of night. And Krishna exhibited this just for us to hear and attract us back to him. If you go back to Krishna, there's no fear of the dead of night. There's no fear of anything. So just as Rupa Vilas titled his volume on Srila Prabhupada, Without Fear, Srila Prabhupada has shown us in a very fearless way how to become devotees. Without arrogance, without pretense, only following in the footsteps of the predecessor acharyas. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions? Feel free to ask. Any challenges? Anything I said that someone says, no, that's not correct? Did someone say? So it looks like we are all in agreement that we're getting the nectar of the Vedas in a nutshell. This whole chapter of trying to bring it down into a nutshell. This vibration was given to us by Krishna. It is transcendental. So it came into this world. We can't take science and like empirically probe up to find Krishna. No, Krishna gives the transcendental vibration. And that is how we'll see that Srila Shukadeva Goswami categorically explains to Parikh Maharaj how the Vedas can give this transcendental knowledge. It's not material. So we'll stop at this point. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, thank you again for joining us on our Sunday Feast program. Would like to request Shivank and his family to please come for the Arati today. And also we have Amit Patel and Harsha Patel to please come forward to perform the Arati. Amit and Harsha Patel. Shivak, please also come. Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Paschadhyare Shatarini Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare So on June the 10th, this young boy, Shivank, we celebrated his 4th birthday. You see this young boy, Shivank, happy birthday. So we're going to sing happy birthday to Shivank. Can we all do that together? What is the name of this boy? I couldn't hear you. Shivank. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shivank. Happy birthday to you. Please raise both your hands. Bless this child. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're hoping and praying that Dipali and Kiran, they will celebrate Shivank's birthday every single year here in front of their lordships for the rest of his life. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you so much, Kiran. Thank you so much, Dipali. Hare Krishna. Also, would like to Amit Patel, they're not here, right? So they wanted prayers, Amit Patel and Harsha Patel, and their family, children, Neil, Shruti, Dhirendra, and Urmila Patel. They're sponsoring the Sunday feast because they want your prayers. So can we pray for them?
Yes.
Easy, just you pray for prasadam, and you walk down the street, they will say they work for food. So for prasadam, we pray for these beautiful souls. So if you don't mind to raise both your hands, lift them as high as you can. And together we're going to pray for this family. Together, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you. And I also wanted to take this opportunity. Who was here for Rath Yatra Festival? Raise your hand. Who was here for Panihati Festival? Raise your hand. If you don't know what that means, you can also raise your hand. Perfect. Thank you, young boy. So we have this incredible festival called the Rath Yatra and Panihati Festival. We fed almost 3,000 plates of prasadam just on the Rath Yatra day. That's a lot of prasadam to serve out. Lakshman Ram Prabhu did an incredible job. Where is Raju? He's outside? He's there? He cooked a really nice feast on Rath Yatra day, and we had this incredible young man. He's a Punjabi warrior. And he comes and cooks every year on the Sunday. And there is a big feast, and everybody, the line never stops till 10:30 at night. Even though the cooking, they cooked and they left, there was still more cooking and there was more prasadam till 10:30 at night. I remember going to bed almost at midnight. So this is what happens every year. We have this incredible festival and everyone has a blast. So there's more festivals coming up, but I do want to say thank you to all of you who were here, participated, and those of you who missed out, don't forget, first weekend in June 2026, the party will reconvene. Okay? So on 21st of June, Saturday, it's Yogini Ekadasi. Everybody knows what is an Ekadasi? Raise your hand if you know what is Ekadasi. Raise your hand if you don't know what is Ekadasi. Raise your hand if you would like to know what is Ekadasi. Ekadasi is a day where we have a feast. It is a day where your body gets a break from you consuming so much food. It starts to regenerate. It's a very incredible astrological calculation. On that day of Ekadasi, what happens is your body goes into a reset mode and your consciousness starts to evolve. Because astrologically on that day of Ekadasi, it is called the mother of devotion, the mother of love. On that day, whatever you do, your spiritual intentions and emotions become intensified. So it is a day for prayer, it is a day of meditation, it is a day of solitude, it's a day of silence and prayer. So, in the temple, what happens is a very nice meditation where we all gather together because we've been silent and meditating, doing our japa all day peacefully. We gather together and we chant and dance. That's all we do on this day. In the Western science world, they call this intermittent fasting. It's a new phenomenon, maybe you have heard about it. There will be so many new scientific phenomena that will come out as time goes on. But this phenomenon has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, prescribed in the Vedic text about the power of this Ekadasi. And the way you have to culminate this fast is by getting together, sitting in a group together, chanting and dancing these ancient sacred hymns and prayers. So this is what happens every Saturday, every Ekadasi in this temple, and each and every one of you are invited. The only requirement for you, the thing that you can bring with you is yourself and a friend with you. That's the only rule. And you have to come and eat lots and lots of prasadam and chant as loud as you can and dance in spiritual ecstasy. So Ekadashi Vrata ki jai. On the 25th of June, this is the appearance day of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. There is a great saint. When you study Eastern philosophy, you will come across this great saint named Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He pioneered this incredible movement of bhakti, of spiritual love, so intensely all over India. And later on, that legacy was passed on through his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, and you can see his picture right in the back. He is considered to be the ray of Vishnu, effulgent. And then Prabhupada, you see him sitting on that Vyasasana. He took on this mission of spreading what in the world we call bhakti, but when you translate it into English, it is an expression of the deepest emotions of spiritual love. So that is what bhakti is. And so on the 25th, there will be a program here in the temple, and all of you are invited. Those of you who would like to fast, there is a very, very unique astrological calculation till noon on that day, on the 25th, and you can fast and you can also enhance your spiritual and physical well-being. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So please come and have your last darshan of the deities, and prasadam will be served outside.